Welcome to Jewish Women Talk About Midlife. Hi, I'm Devora Krasnianski, and I've been coaching women for a long time in all areas of life, and more recently in midlife. Midlife is an exciting time, but it's also sometimes confusing. And so I invite experts to come here to my podcast to talk about different aspects of midlife. You can join in our conversation on our Facebook group, Jewish Women Talk About Midlife. In this episode, I spoke with Rivka Caroline about creating systems, how that can impact our serenity and our sanity. We spoke about how to create systems so that we can clear our minds from having to remember to do all those things and having all those decisions to make. And systems can also help us save time so we can do the things that we really want to do. We also spoke about how we can have better self-talk, ways that we can really change our negative ruminations so we could have that serenity and sanity that we need to live happy and interesting lives. And throughout, we shared so many golden tidbits. Another great episode. Enjoy. Hi, Rivka Caroline. I'm so excited about this topic. All the words, systems, serenity, sanity, I'm really excited about that. So before we even get into the topic, can you talk a little bit about what you do and why you chose this topic?
Sure. What I do. Okay, so I do a little bit of everything. I think like every mum, it's difficult to kind of put us into a square, but backstory, I was doing a lot of home organizing. And as I was doing that, I was doing a master's degree in psychology, kind of thinking, oh, that way I can help people. And then I could also organize lives, and that way I've got balance. And then something really, really funny happened is it kind of intermingled. And I would see the same things, like people were allowing me into their homes and their hearts. Every single woman would say to me, this is the worst house you've seen, right? So I was getting this data and I was like, what is going on? What is going on that our homes, which is like our safe place to renew and recharge and go back out into the world, we feel so badly about. And I realized that, like, as I was like going into life and going through stuff myself, I was just like, wow, I thought kind of organizing the junk drawer will set us free. But yes, don't underestimate the power of organizing. Like that is fabulous and magic. And anyone who wants to go to Container Store will definitely change their life, in the short bandwidth. But going deeper, kind of, this sounds cliche and forgive me, but it's like we've got to declutter our mind. The self-talk that's going on in many women's minds should be illegal. If it was someone talking to one of your children that way in the classroom, you'd be calling the principal. So it kind of developed, it really developed. And now I'm going to say like 80% of my profession is therapy. Once in a while, I'll get someone that wants to organize their house and their life together. And it's great. It's like behavioral therapy right there. But now I've kind of, even though organizing is my love, I see the need a lot more of organizing mums' brains, because once mum's centered, that's the magic. That's the magic.
Right. So you're doing this more psychology-based organizing and less organizing, even though you wrote a fabulous book about that.
Thank you. My book's 10 years old. I can't believe it. I feel like my youngest child is turned 10, Thank you. So yeah, so I do a little, I guess like all of us, I'll do what's needed.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about systems or sanity or serenity. Where do we start?
All the same. They're all, it's all intermingled. And I actually think it's buy one, get two free, or buy two, get one free. And you can't really have one without the other. So systems. Okay, so going into our time management talk, what will set us free is creating simple systems. And people are like, oh, so like your life is like you have like a binder wherever you go. And like, no, it's not like that at all. It's just try and make new mistakes every day. Try and turn your old mistakes into a system. That's it. Because I think that, I'll tell you exactly. So let me just give you a tiny bit. So I think, I'm sure later on in our talk, we'll get to like overwhelm and burnout and depletion, kind of the ugly side that we try not to get to, but invariably we'll all get to once in a while. And what that comes from, in my opinion, is just this constant feeling of overwhelm. And it's almost like a learned helplessness that mimics depression. It's like, well, what's the point? What's the point? And the way we cannot go into that is like, okay, my Monday mistake, like say 20 years ago, I remember on Monday morning, I didn't have gas in the car. I had 3 different carpools. It was raining. I was late. And that driving every kid to school late, they're all like type A like me. Nobody, this was the first brood. The second brood's much more chilled, but this is the first brood. We were much more type A. I was a really younger mom. And I remember just being like, I will never forget to get gas on a Sunday again, because the price I had to pay was so stressful. So this was the time before Google Calendar, but a reminder went. I don't know where I put the reminder. No, I think we still had calendars then. It wasn't, we had digital calendars then. It went in the calendar, and every Sunday at 4 o'clock, I went and got gas. I didn't do it at 4 o'clock, but it was in my head. Like, I don't want to do that again. And that's an example of like, make the mistake, learn the lesson, take that energy rather than beating yourself up, take that energy and make a system, and it will set you free. It's not gonna chain you, and it's gonna set you free.
So what's another example of a mistake that you or somebody else?
Oh, I've made so many mistakes. You only become an expert in an area when you've made a lot of mistakes in a narrow field. That's the only way you can really learn, because you can read all the textbooks you want, but until you've learned that yourself, it's really, really difficult to teach things authentically. I've made tons of mistakes, tons and tons and tons. Meal plan, like just like winging meal plans with like hungry, dinners with like hungry kids. Again, I don't want to make, like, I'm quite like, I don't want to make a meal plan. Like, just pre-decide what you're going to make. Make it simple, 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 simple. Chicken Monday, fish Tuesday, like really simple. And, stick to the plan unless you suddenly have energy and you're inspired. It's very much like, try and live a decision-free life unless you want to. There's a saying that I love. It's so easy when I want to. It's so hard when I have to.
Say that again.
It's so easy when I want to. It's so hard when I have to.
Of course.
Yes, and I think, right. So I try, like, life isn't, we're not computers. It doesn't work like that. I try and live in the want to zone. Really, really try. So that, today I did happen to make a good dinner, but it was just by accident. Do you know what I'm saying? Like tonight's chicken. So normally I just throw on chicken and potatoes or whatever. And I had time and I had a recipe and I made a really good dinner by accident. That's not my default setting. My default setting is like, fix it and forget it for like everything I possibly can.
I love what you said about trying to have a decision-free life, whereas, we have to make many decisions, but take some decisions off.
Yes.
So like, one thing that I did, a system that I did, is I have the same breakfast every single day. I don't have to think about it. It's the same.
Amazing. And one day you might wake up and be like, I really fancy granola. Great. That's wonderful. But you don't have to. And there's real research done about the tyranny of choice that we, and I remember this growing up in England, we had like 3 cereals. Okay, yes, granted, I'm 50 years old and I'm basically, archaic, but it was 3 cereals. It was like cornflakes, Rice Krispies, and bran flakes. And I remember coming to America and seeing your aisles, of like sugar sprinkles. And maybe that's how I ended up here. And I was just like, wow, these lucky Americans. However, data shows the more decision making we have, the more overwhelm we have.
You also that you don't make decisions at all.
Right, exactly. So you just get paradox of choice. You just get, so they say something like, by the time you're having breakfast, you've made like 40 decisions, whatever it is. So people are like, well, where do I start? And I'm like, hold on. First of all, everybody has different systems that work. Okay, not a question. So there's no one starting from scratch. Then I would say, find your area of stress. What do we want? We don't want to be efficient to live in a museum. That's not where we're going. What the goal is, that have your cans in ABC order. That's not where we're going. We want to have time for the serenity. We want time to do what we want. When mums can use their talents for good, painting, drawing, art, things like you're doing, things like I'm doing, that fills up us as humans, then we can stay in that responsive zone, not that reactive zone, So by working smarter, we get time to do that, even if that's just someone sitting on the couch and scrolling. Doesn't matter. There's no judgment, or whatever brings you back to you. But in today's day and age, and I didn't have an iPhone when I had my young kids, today's day and age, you can't wing it. You know, if you're going to make time for you, you have to streamline your life somehow, because there's too much coming at you, and the phone has now turned our attention to Swiss cheese, you know. So how do you do it?
So systems, okay. So we're talking about systems in the
So
house.
everything that you could possibly can systemize, as long as you're not taking away things that you love. For example, I remember 10 years ago, I was in Costco and I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I have graduated Costco. Like, it used to be such a treat. I'm like, boiling hot, you know, lugging, I'm done. And this was, let's just say that Instacart came on the scene, let's say 8 years ago. So I had a 2-year break. I'm like, I'm not doing Costco. I'm done. I'm completely done. Now I have Instacart, which I use once or twice a week. I haven't gone into a Costco in 10 years or 8 years. And I don't think I'll ever miss it. If I ever did pop in there, it would just be to see what they have new and then run out again. I wouldn't be picking up cucumbers. But for somebody else, going to Costco every Thursday is like their time. So it's never one size fits all. It's like, what is the drudge that you would like to get rid of? Because if a mum wants to make a 5-hour profit each week, which is quite a big profit, you're going to have to cut something out. So the first thing we look for is the stress, because there are mums that at 3 o'clock love to make dinner. That's their meditation, chopping a salad. You don't ever take away things that people love. You try and start with the drudge. You try and start with the drama. Bedtimes, you know, depending on the age of your kids, your listeners' kids, the bedtimes, the mornings, the meal times, Shabbos plans, wherever the Erev Shabbos plan, wherever the stress is, make a system, make a checklist, you know, and that all comes together into just bringing more predictability. You know, I think that's the key that systems, sanity and serenity have together, is a feeling of, okay, there's a plan. There's a system. Yes, I'm winging it today, but I have a plan. You know, I can kind of do today.
I think that's also, for me, it sounds like you just don't have to hold things in your head. Like, you don't have to think about it, you don't have to remember it. It just kind of has its system, it has its way of doing it. And to me, that's serenity, is not holding anything in my head, or holding less things in my head.
Holding less, right, because the working memory can hold 7 things. That's why phone numbers are 7 numbers. We hold hundreds and hundreds of things in our mind, and it's not really fair to us, because our brains don't work like alarm clocks. Like, oh, I'm in the kosher store, I remember the 3 things I came in for. It doesn't work like that. You know, that's what 3 o'clock in the morning's for, you know? You know?
So systems, a shopping list would be a system, or an Instacart list.
Instacart list. And now, actually, like, I've seen Instacart evolve. Now it will have a section for your items that you don't even plug in. It just automatically populates. You know, not because they love us, it's because they want us to buy, but that's okay. It works. It can be reminders now. We have Google Calendar, Google Tasks, you know, on a Wednesday, it can pop up, Instacart order, question mark. You know, it's that you don't want to automate your life so much that you make yourself crazy. It's that fine balance. You know, you want, like, for example, I'll do Amazon subscribe and save for certain key items that I don't care if I have double of, the 2-gallon Ziploc bags, a certain soap I like, a certain, you know, certain things I'll automate. But other things, there is a wisdom. There's like flaky, you know, kind of like shooting yourself in the foot because you forgot that you don't have protein in the house and it's dinner in an hour. And there's like a really rigid robot. You know, you don't want to be either of those. You want to be in that middle zone where there's a flow. I think that's also a big piece, where your home kind of flows. Whatever stage, you know, age and stage your listeners are at, there's a certain flow, there's a certain predictability.
Right. So we're talking about shopping. We're talking about systems, shopping for systems. You, in the very beginning of our conversation, you talked about how we talk to ourselves.
Self-talk. You want me to go into that a little bit?
So let's go into that one.
Let's go into that. Okay, so here's a really massive silent epidemic that's going on. Okay, and it's really funny because when I wrote my book, I got so much feedback on 2 pages. They're like, wow, you really spoke about perfectionism. And I was like, did you like the way I discussed laundry? They were like, yeah, it was fine, but perfectionism really spoke to me. And it was like really, really funny because that book was 10 years ago. I don't even have my first master's. No, I didn't even have my first master's then. So I was like, it was very much practical. And it's so funny how the psychology side has really blossomed since then. So self-talk is a silent epidemic. I'm going to guess, okay, this is not data, this is a guess, that 80% of people talk to themselves really mean and will do something that we would never do to our children, which is we catch ourselves doing things wrong and we forget to catch ourselves doing things right. And I was definitely guilty of that. I think most women by nature are guilty of that. I think it's a human instinct. You know how it's like a yellow butterfly, like a poisonous, like a whatever, a yellow ladybug, a yellow butterfly, like the bright colors kind of catch us just like naturally. It's a natural thing. I do think it's natural for us to catch ourselves doing things wrong because we can then recalibrate. But I think that when we can balance that, like in positive psychology that I wanted to discuss with you also, positive psychology, there's a researcher, Dr. Frederickson, and she proposed a 3-to-1 ratio. So it's not Pollyanna-ish where you're amazing and you had a wonderful day and life's perfect, because that's toxic positivity because it doesn't have legs. It's not true. It's not true. Rarely a day's just incredible from A to Z. There's stuff. Life happens. That's the nature of life. So one thing that just didn't go well is fine, but surround that with 3 things that did go well. And that's basically honest reporting. You know, we get so upset at certain newspapers for not reporting honestly. We do the same thing.
We do hyper focus on the negative.
We do hyper focus, and that doesn't work because our minds believe what we tell it. So if we're like, you know, my teenager's upset with me right now, so I'm a terrible parent. It's like, okay, so your teenager's upset with you and that hurts. Sure. However, you know, you took him off to school feeling loved. You know, did the camp application and you had a great dinner together. Okay, it's a moment. It's a moment. I think that's the difference. It goes from this like permanent, pervasive, like this is my life, nothing's going to change, to okay, it's a moment. You know, it's a rain shower. It's not a thunderstorm. You know, and I think that that's the switch.
So what you're saying is like when we do have that negative thing that happened, and we're not going to deny that it happened.
It will. It's going to happen every day.
We'll do it every day and a few times a day, perhaps. But if we're going to start telling ourselves about it, we can also say, "And I also did a
yes in that same area,
even neutral."
Yeah, neutral's good also. Absolutely, because people don't realize that when we ruminate, any anxiety or depression that we have, anything going, the rumination just kind of cranks it up without us realizing it. So we're just exhausted being us, and we're like, I was just washing dishes. How am I so depleted? Because we were just going on, and rumination doesn't get us anywhere. You know, if you've got,
it gets us down.
It gets us down because there's proof and there's proof and there's proof, you know.
And then we're looking for more proofs instead of looking for positives.
Absolutely. There's a great line that I think may have changed my life from Brene Brown. Like, stop looking for evidence that you're not enough because you'll always find it.
Similarly, I love the concept of Afformations, not affirmations, but Afformations. When you ask the question, you know, in what way am I enough, or what way am I a good mom? And you, in the same way that we're looking for ways to prove to ourselves that we were negative, and we're definitely going to find them.
Yes.
If we just by asking a question, our mind goes to finding answers. So if we ask ourselves a positive question, our mind will go to finding answers too. Yes. So in what way was I a good mom today, or what way was I a good wife, or whatever? Your mind will start looking for that too.
Yeah, but we have to also be in that space, or set an alarm on your calendar. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you either have to have this presence of mind to have that thought come to you. Let's say you do that when you pop in the car to run groceries, or you pop in the car to pick up the kids. That's just what you do. Like there's a lot of research. Who's the guy, like James Clear, on the habits.
Right.
So his whole theory, and actually it's really interesting because I read another book, James Clear. There's also I don't actually remember the author. I just started the book. It's Immunity to Change, and they have the same theory, which is big resolutions aren't the way to actually make change. It's very, very nice. Like making a halach in your birthday is very, very special. It's very empowering. It's very big, but that has to be followed through with very, very practical steps. And they say to paperclip it to habit stacking, paperclip it to other habits that you already do. So anything you're strong at, let's say you want to bring in those affirmations every day, it's either going to be an alarm that goes off at, let's say, 2 o'clock every afternoon, or you're like, okay, when I jump into the car, that's what I do. You know, kind of tap it into something else.
I've actually started when I see myself saying, oh, well, you know, that mistake I made, or how could I have done that? I actually say, no, I don't like this thought.
Ooh.
I'm going to try to find myself something that yes, I did do that, but there are other thoughts. And that's actually the point that I go to the affirmations. But that took some training of myself to.
Right. I was going to say that's quite
thoughts.
a high level. Yeah, that's quite a high level, because normally once the thoughts get going, generally speaking, they will outrun you. You know, because they
did
just,
for a long time, but
yeah.
I decided I would need to get a hold of them.
Good for you.
And I can stop it. I don't like where this is taking me, but it did take some time. So
yes,
it's possible.
So it's an and. It's an and. It's like catch yourself in the moment, and you know, chocolate or vanilla, and I'll take both, thank you. You know, so it's like same with this, like try and catch yourself in the moment, like, okay, rephrase that, or have it fixed.
Right. And I think that when there's so much there, we do make, I mean, as we live through the day, we make mistakes. We also do a lot of neutral things, and we do a lot of positive things. And at the end of the day, we just go through 3 accomplishments, and they could be small things. I mean, if you have to, even if you have to come to, like, I emptied out the garbage can today. If it has to be as small as that, but there are always things that we do right, or we do well.
There really are, and I almost wish there was a way to kind of, you know how you can, you know, you have a oh gosh, a pedometer, right? Fitbit, just like tracks your steps automatically. It would be so great if you could just get this tab of all the stuff you do, because most women would hit like 200 different things, but if you would sit them down on a couch with a herbal tea at the end of the day, they're like, I don't know. I mean, I was busy, but like, I don't know what I did, you know, because our day just goes so quickly, and the phone interrupts our focus. So our focus is in so many pieces that I think 30 years ago, 40 years ago, if you asked a mom, she would have a kind of a predictable day. Well, I dropped the kids off, and I went to the market, then I did this, then I davened, then each day had like a rhythm, and we're just splintered. We're all over the place, you know. So yeah,
that couch, sitting on the couch at the end of the day, as if, but let's just say metaphorically,
right,
we can go through the day. And I've tried this a few times. I don't do it consistently, but when I do, it's really magical. 20 things that I did today, and sometimes I have to actually go back. You know,
look in the calendar, right?
Look at the calendar, or sometimes I do like something that's very long, like it's a very long project, so it's really one thing. But then I sometimes break it down to smaller parts, so that I can get to my 20. Because just because I just worked on a project, you know, that's 3 hours.
Yeah.
But you know, I reached out to somebody. I you know, emailed this. I created that document or whatever it is I was working on, because sometimes it feels like we didn't do very much. Like if we call it all cleaning for Pesach, that's one thing. But then there's so many little parts. In the same way,
many subparts.
In the same way, I remember as I was coaching a younger couple, and they were trying to figure out the tasks of like whose responsibilities. We put them down onto Post-its, breaking down just to making a meal.
Cute.
He did not realize how many parts there were to making a meal. He thought that
that's so great.
You know, she made the meal. We're talking about pre-planning and shopping and chopping and cleaning and like cooking this part, that part. And all of a sudden he appreciated it so much more. So we just
that's a really good point. Right. I like that a lot. Just we're like, drop the kids off at school. Hold on. There were 73 parts to that, you know, and they went off feeling loved. Magic.
with snack in their backpack.
Exactly. You know, wow. Yeah.
So coming up with 20 at the end of the day is not really such a hard task if you start looking at it in smaller bits.
Smaller pieces is amazing. I think also to younger moms who by the end of the night they're just fried, I would almost say like on a day that you're struggling, which is going to be 2 or 3 days a week, it just feels a lot more uphill, like an uphill day. Pull out your phone, open up notes or Google Keep, whatever you use, and just start to track what you've done. Because by the evening, you won't be able to remember it, but it will make you feel so good to be like, I did camp registration. Even if you did 20 minutes, I made that phone call, I sent that birthday card, you know what I'm saying? And then it's not even an affirmation, it's just reality. It just goes by so quickly that we can't keep up with it. But it would be so nice for every mom to get this Fitbit where it's like, wow, 73 things you did today. Wow, you know?
So similarly, you know that idea of having your phone set every hour and just check in with your body, with
Oh,
your
I love
body,
that. I
or
love that. I
or
love
every
that.
hour and drink, or every hour and
Yes,
whatever.
yes.
Every hour, just type what
Write
you
down
remember
some.
that you did
Yes,
in the last day, since you
right.
typed it last.
Right. So on your good days, that alarm's going to make you crazy. And on your hard days, that's going to set you free.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that.
So let's talk a little bit more about habit stacking, with the concept of what that is.
Yeah. So habit stacking from James Clear is, and I'm sure it's Elizabeth too, you know, all of these time management gurus, like they say all these amazing things. It's like, wow, that's so clever. Then one of my kids would be like, oh yeah, that's in Tanya. It's da 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 da. And I'm like, wait, say that again. Say that again. You know, like I want that. I want that. So the habit stacking is really clever. It's just whatever you do well right now, add something else onto it. Like I'll give you a really nice example. So going to sleep at night. So I've tried to make like nighttime rituals, you know, drink herbal tea, not happening. But a bath with a Sudoku puzzle, I can do that. Then a bath with a Sudoku puzzle and then hand cream, I can do that. You know, it's like it's that type of thing. Or in the morning, you know, I am an early bird and I do like doing chitas. I'll listen to Rabbi Gordon, but I forgot Tillim for a while because I was so like, almost done, which one do I do first? So I'll add that in the morning, go for a walk for 3,000 steps, sit and say Tillim quickly, you know, like just these things that, and it doesn't make you robotic. So I'm not going to walk every single morning. I'm going to forget Tillim some days. That's part of being a human. Okay, let's just put this out there because I know a lot of people have trouble with perfectionism, you know, where it's like, oh, if I'm not doing this every day, is it even worth it? You know, and I think that's also a massive thing. Everyone is just winging it. Everyone is just trying to get through the day with everyone feeling loved, including themselves, you know, remembering to eat lunch every 2 weeks. You know, everyone's winging it. Everyone's winging it. And I think it's really important that very few of us do things every day that we wish we did through no fault of our own. It's just a lot. So yeah, when I have those days where I'm up and walking, then the habits come my way, you know, the walk, the tilling, the this, the that. And then the other days I'll flip the habits to forget the habits, just watch that self-talk, you know, talk to yourself like someone you love.
So we're talking about habit stacking is more like putting a bunch of paper clips together and just like.
Exactly. So habit stacking is where you just have one thing stable, you'll add something else. So that actually goes really well with the flip-flop of habit stacking and self-talk, because there are some days where things are okay, it's just a stable day, I can stack more things on. Great. Other days when we're wobbly, it's not going to happen. I don't have a strong enough foundation to stack anything. I'm just going to go through my day, do what I have to do, be super kind to myself, and actually get any infusions I can possibly have. I'm not sure what I can, you know, export. I have to work more on the input. And that can be hard for people because they're like, that's ridiculous. I live in a free country. I'm not in a war zone. I have air conditioning. I have food in my fridge. Why am I so fragile? It's the human condition. I'm really sorry.
And there's a lot of things going on at the same time. It's just like our age. I mean, it could be hormones for starters, which is a whole
Yes,
different
it
conversation.
was a whole different conversation. Exactly.
We're not going to put you onto that one, but hormones. I mean, the responsibilities from the taking care of our parents, taking care of our adult children
Yes. Yeah.
changes. There's so much that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we just don't have the time. But the other thing that I always like to add into such conversations is just because your morning wasn't good, like you didn't eat well or whatever, doesn't mean that your whole day is gone.
I love that. I love that.
You could stop eating the Danish right in the middle. You don't have to finish it,
I wouldn't go that far.
but you could. But the idea is just because you had the whole
Yeah.
Danish doesn't mean
Yes.
that you now have to have
Right. Right.
a
Ice
lunch
cream. Ice
that's
cream. Ice cream. Ice cream goes next.
and have you still have well, you can still have your protein for lunch. Like you don't have to continue
Yes. I think
the
that. I love
cycle.
that. I
You can
love that.
crack it
Yes.
at any point.
Yes.
Someone once mentioned it like think of your day as in quarters. So the first quarter wasn't good. Okay, that was the first quarter, but now we can take your next quarter. And I
I
say,
love
well,
it.
quarters you may as well do by any minute. But
Mm-hmm.
that idea. So I just like that. Just because
I
it
love
wasn't
that.
going well.
I love that. I'm going to actually take that on because it's like a game. You know, you can be losing in the first quarter, but then you can be winning in the end quarter. So one quarter doesn't have to reflect on the other quarter. I like that a lot.
So I like that. Like now I can also catch. I've gotten good at catching myself in my thoughts or in my actions. I actually don't have to finish the Danish if I'm starting it.
Good for
So,
you.
but that took a long
That's a
time.
whole new level. That's a whole new level.
Yeah, I'm proud of myself, and that goes onto my list. If I do that, it definitely goes onto my list.
Absolutely. What a win. What a win. Absolutely. Do you want to talk about shame resilience?
Yes, let's talk about that.
Okay. So I never knew there was such a thing as I didn't really even know the difference between shame and guilt, and I didn't really understand it that well. Um, and then once I was into lots of women's houses, and there was that line of like, I know this is the worst house you've ever been into, right? Well, one was because statistically one has to be the worst. I don't know which one it was, but
Right.
then I began reading Brene Brown's research into shame, and it very, very interesting how guilt is like I've done something wrong, and shame is like there's something wrong with me. And I think that's what the ladies were feeling that I was picking up on, but I didn't know the word for it. When I would go into their houses and help them, and they would say, you know, this is the worst house. I can't believe this. There was so much shame. There was so much shame. And to understand the mechanics of we are going to feel shame, maybe not every day, but most days there's going to be a moment where we're going to feel less than. And there's an absolute way to not get bogged down by that. There's an absolute way to not get overwhelmed. And it's super simple. You know, if it's light, you know, let's just say it's an example where everyone's wearing high heels and your ankles are playing up, so you're wearing flats or whatever, and you're like, I guess a moment. You know, that's a moment that doesn't have to be a whole shame fest, but something where something happens you really feel less than, it hits one of your weak spots. You know, we all have like 3 or 4 core beliefs, and something hits one or maybe 2 happen in one day, segment of a day, where we're just like, whoa. So we acknowledge to ourselves like, okay, I think I'm in a bit of a shame fest, and then we just take a minute to be by ourselves, away from the phone, away from everything, and we just talk to ourselves like someone we love, and just like, wow, that really hit one of my real weak spots. I'm going to take a minute, go take a shower, read a book, just take a minute and see if, and just really don't try and wash it away. Really take a minute, not a day, you know, take a minute, try and regroup, understand that it hit one of your weak spots, and it brings up a lot, and see if you can re-enter. Sometimes it will wash out a day. It will. Sometimes it will take 10, 15 minutes. But just acknowledging it was such a new concept that there's, you know, we know in halacha, when you shame someone, it's like you're killing them. When they blush, like we know it's a thing, but I didn't know it was such a day-to-day thing. That really opened up my eyes.
Right. I also sometimes like again with my thoughts, since I've been working on my thoughts a lot, I have a lot to share on
Amazing.
this.
Amazing. Well,
The
that's
idea,
the best. That's the best teacher. That's the best teacher. When I always say, when we have a breakdown That's when we have the breakthrough. And that's when it's a teachable moment. Until we crack that code, you can read all the books you want, read all the research you want, not the same. So yeah,
So
what
just
did you?
don't believe the thoughts. Don't believe your own thoughts. And what I also started doing is like I'm noticing that I'm having a thought. So I'm trying to distance myself from those thoughts. And I find that it really works. Like I just rephrase it again, because I'm able to catch my thoughts, but then I can rephrase it that I'm having a thought that's not necessarily true. And especially when I start seeing the pattern and I recognize that it was a pattern that I
Yes,
know isn't
yes,
true. I'm going down something that I know isn't true because I've already shown
yes,
myself that it's not true. And so the thought still comes. The thought
yes.
splits,
They
especially
still come. They still come.
they still come. But
I've
I can
just
catch
I've
myself
just begun that.
better. I'm still working on
Yes,
it. Still working on it. But maybe one day the thoughts won't even come. I don't
that would
know.
be exciting.
That would be wonderful, but
That
they
would be
still come.
wonderful. I would wish that for you. I've recently begun doing that, and it's funny because I'm a very practical person by nature, so I know, like, if let's say I'm terrible at directions, so let's say my Waze isn't working, and I'm driving, and my gut instinct's like, I'm gonna go right. I will always turn left because I know
Me
in
too.
those
Me too.
moments.
Oh my
So it's so funny, like in my life, like as a therapist, it's so much about your gut instinct, that in my parenting, I lead with it. Directions, no. And I just recently have started to be like, what you're thinking right now, it's your direction brain. It's not true. And I'm like, oh, because without realizing, you just kind of go into rumination mode very automatically, like how neurons are all, they know that route. And I'm like, wrong, don't trust. Don't just turn left, turn left.
Right. And I find it very liberating, and also that I can just say, no, that's not true. It sometimes takes
Right.
me after several minutes of ruminating first
Oh,
before I
more
catch
more than
myself.
right. Or I'll just be like, I'm having a moment. Okay, look at the clock. It's 10:07. Okay, for the next hour, don't believe anything. Let's revisit 11. Let's revisit at 11. It's just like, so I just go through my day. Yeah, just go through this. Don't believe yourself. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because we know it's not true because we've seen other proofs throughout the days and years that isn't true, or it's
Right.
not only true. Sometimes yes, we did do that mistake again, and
Right.
still we are so wonderful in so many other places. So it's true, and there's other things that are also true.
Or some days we're more sticky. Like we can make the same mistake on different days, and one day we're able to put it in context. And oh, well, I think the days that we get overwhelmed, we just lose the context.
When we had Matana Jacobs talking, she said, I love what she said is like, and that's okay. Like, we did that, and that's okay.
That's
Right.
okay. Right.
So since she said that, I've used it a few times. I mean, we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, but I love that, and it's
And that's
okay.
okay. Right. It's like we teach the kids, it's not what you do, it's what you do after. But with us, we're like, it's what I do before. Like,
Or I should have said this, and I could have said that, and I should
yeah,
have
why
done
did I do
this.
that again? Why did I do that again?
You want to go through the
Should we?
science of it because the
Right.
neuropaths are still there. That's why. But
Exactly.
yeah. So, but I think that when we start going back to self-talk, I think that we have better ways of framing what we did, framing the humanness that we are, we can actually deal with life a little bit better, one action at a time, one thought at a time.
Right, for sure. And I think also on the days that we've slept and exercised and eaten well, we're more robust. Sometimes when we make a mistake, I find that sometimes I can talk myself out of it, and sometimes I have to call a safe friend and be like, okay, I just need you to validate, and they'll be like, oh my goodness, yes, of course. Like everyone does that. I'm like, oh, just so sticky today. Yes, it's like, okay, thank you.
Talking about that, I think one of the things that I do is I would start with a walk around the block, just moving and
If you're if
see if
you're
that's it.
able,
Obviously, if you're
yeah,
able
if
to,
you're able, sometimes it's just like,
circumstances.
yeah, that's the best. Getting like physically changing your environment, best.
Or even just stretching. I mean, anyone can stretch their arm no matter what desk they're at. They can still stretch their arms,
Right.
move around, just get something moving. So that I mean, not always, not well, it won't always work, but the idea of trying that can help. Just
Right.
know.
So I think, right, sometimes if you're stuck in your head, you want to go into your body. Sometimes if it's like in your body and you're at a desk, you can play solitaire for 5 minutes and you get out of your head. It just, I guess there's different ways for different people. However you can reset, however you can reset.
Yeah, and the idea is that we can always reset in different ways. You can listen to lots of people's ideas and what works for them. And the crazy thing, though, is that sometimes our go-to reset doesn't work. So now we have to try something else.
So hard. That's so hard. It's like you're so low on gas and you go to the gas station and they're out of gas. It's like, I can't, like my go-to
the walk
one
around the block didn't do it.
Yeah.
I try not to get to food like I used to.
I was just gonna say, right, if the walk down the block doesn't work, try the freezer, right?
Walk to the freezer.
Just walk to the freezer. No, it's not. Listen, there are so many interwoven things. It's almost like, would you rather eat the ice cream or scream at your kids? And it's like, sugar is not our friend.
Yeah, it works temporarily.
It's a short-term friend. It's a short-term friend.
The sugar stays for a long time, but not in the way that we want it to.
I know. It's not a good friend. So, yes. So the whole system, sanity. What was the other thing? System, sanity, and serenity. Serenity is a big one. I think midlife is when you just don't get a choice about serenity anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's like at this point, your kids are not all in the house. Everything has grown exponentially. And you may have told yourself that you had it together before when the kids were younger and things were more clockwork. It's 8:30, there are 5 kids asleep. Whew, you didn't have to have serenity. You needed checklists, and shoes by the door, the right number of backpacks. But once you hit midlife, at that point, serenity is not optional anymore, because you can't gift yourself into the false illusion that you're in control, because there's just too much going on. So at that point, you can either try and still feel in control and your anxiety is just going to go up and up, or you can really lean into serenity. And that doesn't mean doing nothing all day. It just means doing your part and remembering that Hashem runs the world and it's not you, and that's when it's just, you don't have a choice anymore.
It's just surrender. I mean, do your part.
Do your part, let go. Or because the thing is, at this point, you will be up at 3 a.m, and I'm often up at 3 a.m. Please, I'm not. I try and practice what I teach, but I also try and stay very, very real and very human. When I'm not in that zone and I haven't sat and learned Shar B'tachon Ve'emunah and I'm just in the control mode, everything goes off. Everything's off because you can't control it. So basically you're crazy, and then if you lean in, as best possible, and you remember that the goal isn't to run the world, the goal is to do, your part and your way, and then let go, then you're just a little bit less crazy, but I'm just saying, like, serenity at this age, 30s and 40s, it's your choice, but this age.
And I think that's probably why our lives get so overwhelming, and our bodies kind of change, and so it's kind of forcing us into serenity, forcing us to get more in touch with our soul, not so much in touch with our ego or our lists and our systems and our and if we're going to fight it, it's going to be more anxiety ridden.
Right, and you can't wing it anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, anyone who's new to serenity at 50 shouldn't get any points. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, at this point, everyone's going to get there because it's just too much. It's like you can't do it.
It's just too much going on.
It's just too much going on, and you can't pre-plan every curve and be ahead of every curve. You just can't. And I see women who are really trying, and it's almost like, they say, like, what made you a great mother at 7 is not the same skills are not going to make you a great mother when they're 17. It's a different skill set. It's that same type of thing of, like, being ahead of the soccer practice and the this and the this and the chidon practice and all that made you a great mom when you were in your 30s. Now they don't want your reactivity and your anxiety. They have their own. they're teenagers growing up in, or young adults, and they want all this unconditional love. They want low anxiety, and you can't do both.
Wow. There's a lot of changes though, especially when
And
you were in control and things kind of were going because you were doing it.
right. Well, what's kind of cool is I'm sure you have the same thing where your kids kind of do things the same way as you. Like I went to my married daughter's apartment and she has like a meal plan on her fridge, like laminated, and I'm laughing. I'm like, she did when she was in seminary. I'm like, this is hysterical, So like, or my boys took sock locks to Brunoir, like the little sock
Right.
locks that you lock your
Right,
sock. Like
right.
there's certain things that you're like, okay, somebody was listening, like, um, yeah.
But I think that also that there's too many angles that are going. So if you do try to control all the balls in the air, then your brain can't handle it. Sometimes if our brain gets better with the more balls in the air, there's only a certain
Yeah.
amount that we can handle. And then sometimes some of us get less sleep, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
anxiety and or hormones, and with
Mm-hmm.
less sleep, we can handle less balls in the air. So I think that all kind of is forcing us to this surrender and to the serenity because we just can't do it all. We just
Right. You
can't.
can't. Right. That's why anyone who comes to Serenity late doesn't get points because it's like you don't want serenity, you want sleep. Like But it's true, and it's like we see we see that we can either be this like really anxious person who still can't get it all together, or just lean in like back to basics. What's really important that I do every day? It's really important that the kids, the older kids go out the house, you know, with snacks and feeling loved. It's really important that there's a good dinner. It will always come down to food. But then it's also like, if I've slept badly, you better take a nap. Lunch. I've had lunch like 6 times in 30 years. Make today the seventh. Like it's all this thing because also now what's coming at us needs a response, not a reaction. And if we're in that depleted zone, or we're in that whatever zone we're in, trying to get ahead of it all, we just come back with reactions. Nobody wants reactions from us. As like the matriarch figure, that's the last thing they want. They want that serenity that we have. Even if we're, last minute serenitas, they want that. And we want that. We
We
don't
want
want
that
no
for
one
them and we want
enjoys
that for us.
for ourselves. We don't want to be crazy lady. It's not fun.
But I also find, and I read this and I have to read it again, but it said that those who are still wanting things to be the way they are, it turned out to be these old grumpy ladies. That they're the big complainers, as opposed to the matriarch who knows how to handle everything. So the complainers are those who are still trying to control.
Well, I think that we're all one issue away from being a grumpy old lady. Like I think that, but it's true. It's that flexibility and leaning in that will prevent us from being the grumpy old ladies. And we're just like,
And
oh
that
well, like,
happened.
oh well, my kids upgraded my phone for me. I didn't even need an upgrade, but they were being so sweet. And then the number changed, and now people are like, who is this? And I'm like, oh well, like it's happening. Old me would have been so stressed, like, I'm running a business, I need a number. And I'm just like, oh well, oh well. It's like I need to choose. It has to be worth it.
So our motto in our family is, and if it doesn't work out, we'll have a story to tell.
That's adorable. I like that one. That's really
So
cute.
we have a lot of stories to tell
Mine
because
would mine would be like, it doesn't work out, we'll have a panic attack. Like
okay.
I like your one better. I like your one better.
And we have stories to tell. And sometimes we
Yeah.
don't. Sometimes it just works out. Worst case
Right.
scenario is that we'll have a good story to tell at a dinner table.
I like that a lot. That's a really good one.
Okay, it's a more recent, we weren't always like that, but we're getting there. We're doing it more and more often. It's already like my friends already know that motto.
So we've got a story. We've got a story to tell. I like that.
And
Yeah, it's all a journey, and I think that if we can just do that self-nurturing, self-kindness, talk to ourselves like someone we love through the day, whether everything on our task list gets checked off, whether we just can't, and we're so raw and vulnerable that day that, going to the post office was the biggest victory you've had in a while. Whatever it is, that's that's where we need to be right now. It's not about the efficiency and checking it all off. Yeah, do your smart systems, get gas every Sunday, have a meal plan, preset your dinner ahead. Sure. Use Instacart. Yes, of course. You're your most expensive shopper. Yes, do all these things to set you free. Find time for what you love, what just brings you joy, and some people will say, yeah, painting, I love painting. When did you last paint? Oh, 20 years ago. And it's like, that's a crime. It's a crime. Like, yes, when you've got little babies, 3 under 5, of course you can't open a paint tube. That's a luxury. But like now, or even 10 years in your 40s, like you need to do what you love, and that's what Instacart's for. Like people are like, oh, but I like to choose my own cucumbers. I'm like, no. Okay, fine. You really need to choose your own cucumbers. Order everything else and run in and choose your cucumbers and your tomatoes, sure. But come on, like give yourself time to be a person.
It's trade-offs. Do you want your serenity or do you want your perfect cucumber? I mean,
I
that's
love
what I
it.
see it. For some people, it's a cucumber, and that's they
A,
willing to
a
trade off
lot
their
of a
time.
lot of but all people will be kind of in their own mindset of like, well, I've always done it that way. I'm like, but you literally don't have time for you. Or they're like, I have to choose my own produce. Okay, fine. Order everything else. Like if I ever see a woman like in a big shopping cart with like cases of water and cases of kitchen paper, I would literally go over to her. And I probably have and been like, you can get this all delivered basically for free. Why? Like, do you enjoy this? Is this a workout for you? Is this the highlight of your week? Because I'm sure there's something you would love to be doing right now.
And also, if you think about the time, it's like Instacart does sometimes cost on some items it does cost more, but it's also 45 minutes to go to Costco and back. And like, what can you do with that
There's
time?
no,
How much is your
also,
time worth?
also, I can assure you that there's no one in the history of Costco has ever gone into Costco and gone out with exactly what was on their list.
Oh, I
It's
do, but
statist
I do.
really,
But
you are a statistical anomaly, which is amazing. But
I should really
that
stop going to Costco altogether. But I
do
do.
Instacart, do Instacart.
Right.
But here's the thing: what if you enjoy it? Do you know what I'm saying? What if you enjoy starting off your week, going to Costco, stopping? What if that's enjoyable? We don't take away things that are enjoyable unless you were like, oh, wait, like you said, trade-off. I could do a 2-hour painting class. Painting doesn't talk to me, but for some people it's wow, so that's the thing. Like I can't create a handbook that would work for everybody always because we're all so individual. So that's why it's like just find out where the stress is, start there. Start where the stress is.
Well, you can kind of figure out what your stress is if those things that you complain about. Let's start with that.
Exactly, exactly. Or ask your friends, your sisters, what are you always complaining about? That's the area.
Or your husbands, they also know what you're complaining about.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. And it's like, okay, back to basics. Let's pretend I love going to Costco, but I don't have time to do the main, I'm not doing well in the sleeping, the eating, or the exercise. So you might not be able to afford the luxury of Costco right now because that could be a power walk or an exercise class that's going to have a domino effect on other things, but again, the pain has to be worth it. It's very difficult for some people to change. It's just what I do. Do you love it? No, that's just what I do. Would you want to fit time in for an exercise class? Yeah, but who does? Do you know what I'm saying? So you have to reach the point where you're like, this isn't working.
And I guess they haven't if they're still doing it.
Right, and that's like one of the really smart things I learned in graduate school is like you can't have an aha moment for your client. So we all need to have our own aha moments. We're like, wait, if I don't go to Costco, I can da da da.
Right. And so I think that's why I like the post-its. It's like you kind of see like what things can I break them down to small bits so you can actually see what can I give away or what can I buy pre-cut vegetables or pre-cut whatever it is.
Right.
So
which part do I love? Right. Which part of this process do I love? And if you were to ask 100 women, someone would be like, oh, I love just buying this. Oh, I love shopping. Some people love shopping the same way some people love washing up because it's mindless. Some people really enjoy it's almost meditative, like just a job that they can just do. I don't like washing dishes, but I know there are some people that love it because it's just mindless. You can do a good job. I don't, everyone's so individual, but it's,
And
I
it
guess
changes. Like
and it
tapping,
changes,
like some people
right?
maybe used to like to buy the cucumbers and like, not so exciting anymore.
Right.
Or,
Which is great,
right.
but we are sometimes, you know, it's hard, like they say, like change is easy, you go first. It's hard sometimes to change habits, and if we're not getting a trade-off, well, Instacart's $119 a year and then we find all the reasons. So, you know,
Right. And so it really has to be this. Yeah, I guess we have to find a reason why we want to make that change, because we said before that at the very beginning we were talking about we don't like to make decisions. We're trying to get to a decision free.
right,
But as we're
right,
making that change, it is a decision and it is a change. And we may have to remember a few times or many times, so that it changes something in our brain. And for some people, that's
right,
not what they really want to do. So they just don't want to, they don't want to think about it. They don't want to sign up for Instacart. They don't want to start shopping online for, it's hard enough to shop online
right,
for clothing, or some people still
right.
like to go into the stores,
Mm-hmm.
don't like the returning,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all good.
It's
But
all
that's
it's all
why
good.
some people don't make the changes, because it takes decisions and it takes change.
And it also takes vulnerability and courage to do things differently. And when you're really, really overwhelmed, that's the commodity you have the least. Sometimes that's like sometimes in the summer, people can kind of think a little bit and think, like, okay, I want to do things a bit different. I want dinner ready when the kids walk in. I want, whatever, a more calm Erev Shabbos, whatever it is. But it's difficult when you're in the moment to see what you need to change. You need to have that aha moment yourself where you're like, I don't want to carry on like this. Like I want to switch things up. And that, if you're lucky enough to have a close friend or a close sister that can point it out to you, but very often that's that like moment that you have yourself and you're just like, okay, I need to do things differently.
There has to be something better.
There
Because
has to,
sometimes
there has to be a smarter way of doing this. Like, and like, you know what? I think I'm getting in my own way.
I think that's why we can reach out to friends or even the group. And that's one of the reasons why I started the Facebook group, is that people can reach out and just, there are lots of other people who've gone through it or may have other ideas, or at least who can validate you. So I'm
Yes,
really
yes.
excited about.
Validation. Yeah, validation's massive. Yeah.
Right. So there are some small changes and some bigger changes, and that's the idea, is to get that sanity, get that serenity by making some systems. I think that's what we were trying to talk to today.
Yeah, take the energy instead of the old you that would take that energy from the system and beat yourself up, speak to yourself like someone you would love and take that same energy and make a simple system. Simple system, nothing fancy, nothing. Speaking of Costco, which should have been our corporate sponsor for tonight, a great system was when I used to go to Costco, it would be like at checkout, it was like carts with a red arrow to the left and like people with a red arrow to the right. Genius system. They probably saved so many hours. That's a system right there. Systems can be very, very simple, but if you can crack the code to set yourself free, that's the magic.
And you don't have to do a Marie Kondo kind of thing.
Marie Kondo, who now has 3 kids, who's given up trying to have a clean house. And I was like, I told you
I
that,
knew that.
I knew that was coming. She says with not even a hint of passive aggression. Yeah, I was like, I knew that was coming, So yeah.
Right. So how can anyone reach you, Rivka?
So well, yeah, with my new phone number, I can be reached email, WhatsApp. My website's being updated, so we're not quite there yet. That I'll always choose mental health and family over work. So projects that I'm like, I'll whip this out in 4 weeks becomes 4 months because my team knows that bow down to the family first. So
Okay. So you can
yes,
share that in the show notes at the end. They'll give me your email
yeah,
address.
lovely. Yeah, lovely.
All
Okay,
right. Thank you so much,
good.
Rivka. This is a great
No,
conversation.
it was really, really nice. Okay, take care.
Thank you for joining me in another fascinating conversation about midlife. If you'd like to reach me, Devora Krasnianski, to talk about your midlife or anything else, You can reach me at jewishmidlife@gmail.com and follow us at Jewish Midlife on Instagram and Facebook, and join us in our conversations in our Facebook group at facebook.com/group/Jewish Women Talk About Midlife.